So it is April right now. And a lot of the time in April, usually schools prep for kind of end the year field trips, kind of, the grade eight trips that I used to go on. Maybe in high school, you get those, year end celebrations before graduation. People like to travel around, get together with their friends, and do one last hurrah before they go off to college or elsewhere. Uh, Things have definitely changed in the regards of travel. And we've shown this before that the tourist industry is kind of biting their teeth and clutching down on the fact that this constant back and forth trade war with Donald Trump and the rest of the world is not looking good for the tourism industry. And it's hurting a lot of the tourism industry, and mostly because a lot of people are just up in arms. They don't know what's going on, and they fear of what could happen to them amid all these ICE deportations and also just with the trade war hurting the economy. So, for example, this is from the Coast Reporter. I don't know which coast it's from, but this is the Coast Reporter reporting this. Some schools in Canada are putting off U.S. field trips on hold amid trade war. There are disappointed students, anxious parents, and cautious school officials in at least two Canadian school districts that have suspended or canceled trips over political uncertainty in the United States. So, this is definitely going to put a damper on this promise that, hey, if we crack down on ICE, have ICE officials crack down on illegals, hey, if we do this full blown deportation, hey, if we do all these tariffs, think of all the jobs, think of all that's going to pour into America. It's not looking good. It's not looking good, and especially for travelers from elsewhere, especially in places like Canada that tend to come to the United States. Now, with this trade war, now with the political uncertainty, now with the mass deportation, we saw the woman in Vancouver that got detained for redoing her work visa. There's a lot of uncertainty, and that's going to cause devastation to the tourism industry, especially like with schools, because schools do pay a lot of money for these year-end trips here. So there are disappointed students and anxious parents and cautious school officials in at least two Canadian school districts that have suspended or canceled trips over political uncertainty in the United States. British Columbia's largest school district in Surrey has put all of its field trips down south on hold to prevent any negative experiences at the border, while New Brunswick's largest French school district abruptly canceled a high school band trip as a precautionary decision. Mark Pyramane, Surrey's district superintendent, said the city is diverse with many students from different backgrounds, including some who may not be Canadian citizens. Some of them might be here because their parents are temporary foreign workers, and it's a recognition that we just always had to make sure of that our staff and our students are always safe, he said. The district has about 40 to 60 international field trips each year, and about half of those go to the United States. Some of them are sports related, while others are dance competitions or musical events. He said that they don't want to see a scenario where a student or a staff member experiences trouble at the border. Permain said there's suggesting teachers look for opportunities to explore our amazing country, Canada, including beautiful British Columbia. He said he's hopeful for things will settle down in the future and schools can go back to their previous practices. Monique Berdereau, superintendent of the Francophone Sud District School District in DP New Brunswick, said in a statement it made a difficult decision to suspend a planned trip to the United States this month for a high school orchestra for Ecole L'Odyssey. Is that how you pronounce it? A public school in Moncton. Bordeaux said the decision came in the context of a complex and uncertain socio-political environment, followed by decisions with the Department of Education and Early Childhood Development. She said they canceled the trip after the department had indicated that they expected to receive guidelines concerning banning non-essential travel into the United States. New Brunswick Premier Susan Holt told reporters last week that there wasn't a directive from the province to district or the schools to stop travel to the United States. We're hearing all about anxieties of traveling to the United States, but those decisions and the authorities for those decisions lie with the school and district, she said. Bordeaux said it's no longer possible to reschedule the trip. So, you know, it is a bit heartening. I guess the silver lining in this is that you take the opportunity to explore a bit more of our country, which, it'll help our industry. I'd say it'd help more of us. But again, these tariffs, the mass deportation, all this kind of false promise to think that it's going to help America in this situation, not really helping America in the vision that Trump told you. Especially in cases like this, you get a lot of people and a lot of states and a lot of cities that depend a lot on tourism from foreign countries. And the more pressure you put on foreign countries and the more tensions you put, the more tariffs you put on, obviously causing a stir in relations, it doesn't help the tourism industry because a lot more of those foreigners are going to take other chances away from the United States. They're no longer going to look at uh as a travel destination to go into America amid all this. And here's just another example of this. Canadian travel to the United States has plummeted. One reason why is fear. The number of Canadian trips to the United States by land has dropped by almost a third. When political science professor Aras, oh God, Arash I can't say that, heard last month about foreign travelers being detained at the U.S. border, he canceled plans to speak at an upcoming academic conference in Durham, North Carolina. He believes heightened scrutiny at the U.S. border makes travel to the country too uncertain. Why would we subject ourselves to this? He said, who teaches at McGill University in Montreal. We can say to ourselves, well, I haven't done anything wrong. But then you have to ask yourself questions like, have I said something on social media that the current regime might find critical of them? And that's actually true because the Trump administration admitted that people coming into the United States, regardless of whatever reasoning for it, whether you're a tourist or whether you're applying for a visa, they're going to check social media accounts. They're going to do a full background search on you for entering to the United States. And if you say anything that's critical of US policy, anything that's critical about Trump, anything that's critical of Israel, you know, that's going to cause a lot of scrutiny. That's going to cause a lot more tension. That is going to again hurt more of the American tourist industry with this. The number of return trips among Canadians traveling to the U.S. in March has plummeted compared to the previous year, down 13.5% for air travel and down a whopping 32% for land travel. One reason for the drop in travel is anger over U.S. President Donald Trump's trade war. Another reason gaining around concern over beefed up border security following Trump's pledge to crack down on immigration. Recent reports of foreigners being detained for longer than a week, including two German tourists, a backpacker from Wales, that's the one we reported to, and Canadian Jasmine Mooney, have created chill among many Canadians who used to travel to the U.S. without hesitation. Mooney was detained for 11 days last month after she tried to enter the United States and her work visa application was denied at the US Mexico border. I got put into real jail. It's like the movies, two levels, cells on each side. She said in an interview with the CBC last week. I didn't leave my cell for I think 24 hours to be honest. I was so distraught. U.S. immigration lawyer Len Saunders counseled Mooney about her case. He says that in previous administrations, when travelers' visa applications did not meet the bar, they would typically be sent back to their home country. You would never have seen them in custody, especially more than maybe a day, said Saunders, who office is in Blaine, Washington, in close to the Canadian border. There seems to be an absolute no discretion, he said. It's almost like the pendulum has gone 180 degree from law enforcement to maximum from low enforcement to just maximum enforcement. When asked about the recent detainees, U.S. Customs and Border Protection replied in an email that the Trump administration is cracking down on people who tried to enter the United States under fraudulent pretenses or with malicious intent. So, why, if that's the case, again, they keep touting that it's only going after the criminals. We're going after the criminals. That's what they promised. That's what they initialized. That's what people thought at first. But we're seeing that because ICE is not scrutinized, because they're not doing checks and balances, because they're not holding accountable, unlike other agencies, ICE is just roaming free and grabbing whoever and whatever and detaining them in the most unlawful way possible. You're taking down tourists, you're taking down backpackers, you're taking down people go through the checks and balances to apply for a visa. They're accepted of a visa, but because they're not U.S. citizens, you throw them into detainment anyway. And more so, you're actually cracking down on legal citizens, people that have green card statuses, people that marry into the United States, people that are U.S. citizens by all legal discretion are being deported or being detained. They're being thrown to El Salvador. Why? Because of the quota. Because El Salvador gets a huge kickback for every criminal they lock away in their CCOT prison system, in their concentration camp. And the United States gets to congratulate themselves and pat themselves on the back for deporting more and more of these criminals and terrorists they deem. But are they actually terrorists? Well, we don't have the legal presence to know that because they're not going through the checks and balances. They're not giving people a fair trial. And for those who know anything about the Patriot Act, for those who know anything about how the United States takes these policies and keeps moving the goalposts to further along their means to go after anybody, it's dangerous. So, yes, Canadians are going to be terrified of going to the United States, especially in this situation. And that's mostly probably why they don't want young children. As I said there's a lot of young kids that are going to be, questionable by ICE. Let's just say that. They're going to be questionable by ICE officials. So this is not looking good for American tourism, especially for a lot of snowbirds, especially a lot for the elderly that go to a lot of the southern states, deeply red Trump territory states that go for the warmth and comfort. Do you think after all this, do you think that, not even just 100 days in, with all this chaos, with all this mayhem, you think they're going to go back down there? Probably not. Imagine an 80-year-old being detained by ICE who's just vacationing with her husband on the beaches of Florida. Imagine being detained when you're 80 years old because you're just Canadian. Can you imagine that? Just how heartbreaking that is. And we've seen how they just go overboard on the whole mass deportation. They don't even care anymore. They don't have any checks and balances. They don't go through a legal process. All they have to do is slap you with terrorism, and they just wipe you away. They just send you off to El Salvador. No questions asked, no hesitation, because once you're slapped with that, you don't get constitutional rights. You don't get amendments. You don't get human rights. That's why Guantanamo Bay is in Cuba. That's why they're sending them to El Salvador. They're supposed to be sending them back to their homelands legally. But if you just slap someone with the terrorist decree and just propagandize people and fearmonger people, they're going to be sent to El Salvador without any question, without any scrutiny, without any legal obligation to give them their constitutional rights. And people go, well, they're here illegally. They're guests in their country, so they don't get constitutional rights. The Constitution allows for any person that steps on the grounds of the United States to have constitutional rights. That is the whole purpose of the Constitution. That anyone that steps in the grounds of the United States, regardless of where they came from, who they are, what their free speech and background is, that everyone gets everyone is represented under the Constitution. Just like how people in Canada, if they step on the grounds of Canada, they're protected by the Charter on Rights and Freedoms. That's just how it is. That is the legal presence of it. And if you're against that, if you're still supporting people like Mahmoud Khalid being detained because he's a student protester for Palestine, or if you're for that gay hairdresser we showed earlier being detained in El Salvador because of tattoos, then you're not for the Constitution. You're not for free speech. And frankly, you're pretty much anti-American. You're anti-American because you're putting your fear-mongering politics in front of the Constitution, in front of everything that America stands for, the fundamentals of American society. And sadly, that's what a lot of people are sadly doing. A lot of commentators and a lot of media figures in the United States are doing. They're amping up this mass deportation. They don't care. Just like Judge Jeanine Pirro. You know, people of the Fox News. Oh, why do you care so much about checks and balances? Oh, why do you care so much about torture? Oh, why do you care so much about this? Maybe because it's happening. Because it's happening right in front of our noses. We know about this. We have covered about this. And that is why Canadians and people all around the world are now taking a look at America and saying, I'm not dealing with this. So this is definitely going to be a blow for the tourism industry. And America is starting to wake up to this. And that's why more and more people are kind of looking at the Trump administration with a second opinion and are just disgusted by the measures being taken by this. And by the way, it's not even 100 days yet. We're what? Almost 3 months in of Trump's administration and the mass deportation chaos, the free speech cabal against peaceful protesters and demonstrators, the complete obliteration against working class people to serve the needs of places like Israel. Not doing well for America. This is brought to you by Ground News, the versatile news app and website that gathers all the world's media on one place and allows users to compare coverage. Ground News gives you the access of thousands of sources worldwide, allows you to see the media blind spots, and even gives analysis on the bias and factuality of those stories. Weave your way through the mainstream narratives, the corporate lies, and have total access to find complete information that you deserve. Click on the link below and get 15% off a subscription. Be critical, be informed, be ground.